Good morning, everybody. I hope you had a pleasant evening, and thank you very much for your time again today. I look forward to sharing with you a little bit more detail about the Curioo platform and our objectives and how we deliver learning to this generation of young people. We spoke yesterday about some of the key themes related to a paradigm shift in education, but we also spoke about really important skills that this generation of young people need. So in terms of the objective of what we're trying to do at Curioo is actually to make sure that this generation of young people has the required knowledge, skills, and mindsets to capitalize on the incredible opportunities of the future. And if you see here on the screen, we have a number of products based on the age segment. So we have a kindy product called CuriooKids, which is focusing on students from 2 years old to about 5 years old. We have our CuriooKids product, which is focusing on primary school age students. And we have Curioo Campus, which is for middle school and high school students. And we have our global camps, where we're sending students from Curioo studios around the world to different locations where they can learn. So currently, we have about 30 students in Curioo Japan who have come across our network. We've had students in Malaysia, and we look forward to bringing students from around the world to Egypt and to our other markets in the Middle East and North Africa. A bit of a snapshot in terms of the scale of our operations, and a reminder that we only launched 4 years ago. So we are one of the fastest growing education companies in the world. So we currently have today, we have about 8,500 students coming in and out of our learning studios. We're growing at a very rapid rate. As I mentioned, we have courses covering from 2.5, 3 years old up to 18 years old. We currently have operations across 12 countries, Greater Asia, Middle East, North Africa, and also in the US. We currently have around 52, but we're growing almost every day, where we have 52 studios. And a little bit later, our co-founder, Richard Giddings, will show us a little bit around what happens in a studio. In terms of our studio operations, for you to get an idea, or contextual idea of what a studio is, normally we take out about 150 square meters of space. We normally locate our studios across the road or near a public school, normally a primary school, and our students come 2 times a week. So 2 times 90 minutes, one time Monday to Friday, one time on a Saturday or Sunday into our studios. And we have the 4 key subjects that we're focusing on at Curioo. One thing that we're very, very proud of is the gender balance in terms of our student population. It's around 50-50, just slightly more boys than girls across all of the markets that we are in. And this is really important. If you look at STEM businesses or coding schools or technology-driven schools, quite often there's a disproportionate amount of boys, 75% boys, 25% girls, but not at Curioo. The tonality of the brand and how we target our customers are really focusing on that really important balance. And at the moment, because our major focus, our go-to-market strategy in most countries is focusing on that primary school age group, you can see that the average age of our students is around 7 years old. And this is really important. First of all, from a parent perspective, parents with kids at this age are actually quite exploratory. They want to expose their child to as many different learning experiences as possible. It could be swimming, it could be ballet, it could be art, it could be design, many different experiences, because they want to find out what is their child's interest, what is their child's aptitude. So parents are quite open to new learning experiences at that age, and we help parents to understand who their child is. We're also because of the uniqueness of our curriculum and the areas that we're focusing on, you can see that we're being widely recognized globally for the innovation of our curriculum. There's a number of awards. The EdTech Award on the left there is related to the United States. The Parent Award is a vote by parents in terms of the best provider, enrichment provider through Asia. The next award is related to Sweden and the top 100 most innovative education programs in the world. The next two are related to educational technology and international student methodologies based out of the United Kingdom. So increasingly the curriculum and how we deliver learning is being recognized globally. In terms of our growth and student numbers, we're seeing kind of rapid growth. So this is, on the left-hand side is the number of students. So we started with about, our first year around 1,800. This year we'll finish up with around 8,500 students. But you see kind of a rapid growth as our footprint expands globally. Obviously the number of students that are coming into our learning centers on a weekly basis is steeply increasing. We expand through partners, so Curio Edu is one of our partners. We also look at where we can make an acquisition of education business. So we grow through our partner network or through corporate-owned studios that we invest in, but also we'll make an acquisition. So at the moment, we're raising capital to acquire a fairly large English language training company in Vietnam, which we will then convert to Curio by adding our product. So this is a way for us to accelerate our growth. And on the bottom right-hand side there, you see the kind of network sales or the revenues of the business, which in line with this student number chart, obviously the revenues of the business are increasing at a very attractive rate. So the business is, geared for significant growth over the next couple of years. In terms of what I would like to take us through just quickly today, and obviously I'm happy to share more detail around our product, around our technology platform that supports the product, and how we expand our business. But these are kind of the key areas that I wanted to go through today. So starting with our product, as we've spoken about in the last the last day or so, we're really focusing on these kind of future-orientated areas, ensuring that we're preparing young people for the future. So entrepreneurship, creative design, technology or digital skills, and the ability to communicate effectively in their own language and in English. We use a cross-curricular methodology where ideas and skills from one area can then be applied in another area. So for example, design, the use of color, the use of space, can then be applied to technology in the design of a website or a game or a mobile app. The ability to communicate effectively is also used in entrepreneurship for our students to pitch or to share their ideas or to work collaboratively with each other. Our course is progressive. It starts relatively simple and then becomes increasingly sophisticated as students progress through our course structure. Students are obviously at the center of what we're doing. So I wanted to show you just a short video of one of our students in Thailand, just so you can get an idea of how they can communicate, how we've taught them to communicate, but also the importance of these 4 subject areas. So this is a young student, a 7-year-old student based out of one of our Thailand studios, and she competed in a competition. So we have annual competitions across all of our network related to design, related to entrepreneurship, related to business ideas or community-based ideas. So if we could just play the video.
Hi everyone, my name is Kirtan from CuriooKids, Thailand. I'm 7 years old. Today I would like to present my business idea. I'm gonna open a swimming school for kids because I love swimming and I found that drowning is a leading subject for children all over the world. So if they can't swim, they will have safety when they play in the water. The school name is Curtan Swimming School, or CSS. And this is the logo. It's me smiling in the swimming pool. It shows that swimming is very fun, and you'll be happy when you go swimming. The slogan of the school is Safe, Smart, Strong, because I think swimming can help you get more safe, smarter, and stronger. The school will be open on August 2022. I set the price at 3,000 baht per course. I will attract the customer by giving 50% discount if they book a class on the opening day. Finally, thank you, CuriooKids, for this opportunity. And if you like my business idea, vote for me, please. Thank you.
Okay, so let's go through some of the skills that this young girl kind of utilized here. And this is part of the cross-curricular methodology. So from an entrepreneurship perspective, she came up with an idea. So she wanted to come up with an idea that would improve her community, which is teaching young kids how to swim. She realized that actually drowning, not being able to swim, is a leading cause of death. So she came up with a startup idea. She was able to use kind of design skills here to be able to come up with a brochure and be able to communicate her idea. She was able to use some financial literacy skills, so she put a price, she was able to put a discount on it. Again, from a technology perspective, she created some media, so she created a PowerPoint presentation to communicate her idea, and then through kind of English communication, of course, she can communicate that idea in her native language, in Thai, but she was also able to communicate very effectively in English. And this is a 7-year-old girl who's gone through our program after the last 3 or 4 years. So you can imagine, yes, there's a lot of skills here, but also what about the self-confidence that this experience gives her, the ability to be able to come up with an idea and then have a framework in which to then communicate her idea. It's very powerful, and then she's able to apply those skills, not just at Curioo, which is kind of, problem solving, project based, but it gives her confidence when she goes into the traditional schooling environment where she can also apply those skills. So it's extremely powerful and really reinforcing for a young person to go through this experience on a regular basis. We need to keep on repeating this kind of experience. So in terms of our curriculum, you can see the structure of what we teach. We teach subjects, but underneath the subjects, there's specific skills that we're teaching around character, about building who you are as a person, understanding yourself, around startups, around financial literacy and leadership. Not only leading other people, but also leading yourself, how to set goals, how to be ambitious in what you want, and technology across a number of different areas. So we teach students how to type from the basic levels, how to use Microsoft Word, how to use Excel, how to use PowerPoint. They're also going into creating media, so they're using animation type skills, programming from basic coding, starting with block coding, HTML, app development, game development, and then increasingly into the use of AI. And then digital worlds, which is also the combination of some Web3 technologies. And then we have our design. So we start with basic drawing, painting, sketching, but we move very quickly to digital tools, so using animation, etc. And then we have the standard English curriculum. In terms of how we structure, as students progress through our course, it gets more complex. It starts very basic, very easy, but as they progress and their skills develop, we start demanding more sophisticated, more complex responses. So by the time they finish their course, they're very, very ready. We draw upon areas of prior knowledge, but also we adapt our curriculum to each of the markets that we operate in. We provide the platform, we provide the content, but we work with our local partners. We want to make sure that anything we present to a student in Egypt or Saudi Arabia or to Indonesia is relevant for them, so that they have role models that they can connect to, that they have cultural relevance that is recognized by them. So we modify some elements of the materials so that when our students see the content, that they can connect with the content quite quickly. So in terms of our product portfolio, we have our studio operations. So these are physical offline spaces that our students come into. So we have our kindy spaces, which are especially designed for 2, 3, 4, 5-year-olds. The tonality, the look and feel, the furniture is suitable for them. Then we have our kids, which is the primary school product, and then we have our middle school and high school, which is not in the same space, but adjacent to it. We also have our camps. As I mentioned, we're sending kids around the world, and these are incredible experiences for young learners. So we have students currently in Japan, in one of our studios there, and it's an experience that's great for the students that go to Japan, but it's also great for our students in Japan. It increases empathy to other cultures and understanding of each other and respect for each other and other cultures. We have camps, also more intensive learning camps. So in our studios in the Northern Hemisphere at the moment is the school holidays. So our students are coming in maybe for 3 to 5 hours a week doing some accelerated learning, so rapidly improving their skills. We also, one of the fastest growing parts of our business is related to schools and providing content and curriculum to schools. Now, almost every day, we're getting inquiries from school groups to augment their existing curriculum and provide support to them. So we have that for kindergartens, we have it for primary schools, and we have it for high schools as well. And we also have an online product as well, which is one-to-one for students. So depending on the market, depending on the needs of our partners, we have multiple ways to deliver our products to the end consumer. So for some markets, for example in China, we have about 800 students who are 100% studying the Curioo program online. They do not come into a studio. So it depends on the market, it depends on connectivity. So we have multiple products. In terms of the progression, you can see that the potential lifetime value of our customers is really impressive. We can take a student from 3 years old and take them all the way to 18 through this progression. We have our camps, which are increasingly developed. We have the licensing, so we can start with schools, kindergartens from a young age. Now the content is slightly different between what we deliver in our studios to what we deliver in the schools. If you like, the schools, because there's generally limitations on time, is a little bit lighter in terms of the content. And then we have our online platform, which we would service centrally. This is the kind of high-level curriculum structure, and I won't go into this in too much detail. So, you have the 4 subjects, you have the skills that we're teaching, you can see the progression that we have through our course from the basics to much more sophisticated, so block coding to Python, fairly sophisticated design skills from basic drawing and sketching all the way to game design, entrepreneurship as well to public speaking, new venture creation at the end, and then through our high school program we have a certificate program Again, what we're looking to do is ensuring that the students that complete our program can either get acceleration into higher education, so into university or college of their choice, either in their own country or overseas, but also in many cases, some of our students can go straight into a job once they've completed the final years of our program. They can get an entry-level digital skills job, and then they can enter into this kind of lifelong learning path. So it's up to the parent and up to the child in terms of where the end result of where they want to go is. We have about 2,500 lessons through our program. About 33% of our lessons are tied to one of the UN SDGs. Obviously, in some markets, this is more important than the others, but we are very focused on helping this generation of young people be proactive in terms of trying to solve the challenges that we all face, whether it's related to climate change, whether it's related to our resources, related to soil or water, and also related to ensuring that young girls have great opportunities, for career progression and for their education. So most of our materials are very carefully tied to UN SDGs, and in some countries, we only provide, so for some licensing into schools, they want content that's tied to UN SDGs. So for Japan, for example, which is quite a big market for us, this is extremely important for them to deliver this alignment with UN SDGs. Okay, let's shift gears a little bit in terms of, as I mentioned on the first day, the first principle at Curio is that every child has talent, has aptitude. What we need to do is try and find out what that aptitude or talent is. Now, most of you would have or have children of your own or have a brother or sister, and you'll see that actually, each child has their own personality, they have their own interests, and as parents, we want to nurture and support that specific or unique talent or interest that their child has. But we need to use some relatively sophisticated tools to understand what that talent is. So before a student starts at Curio, we want to know who they are. So we run a series of assessments with them and with their parent. Again, we use some well-recognized psychological theories that have been well-researched. So one of them is the Holland theory, where we run an assessment with the child. So we have one of our instructors here would do a 20-minute or 25-minute assessment to try and understand a little bit more about that little girl's interests, what does she like. Now, from 5 years old, this is quite an accurate assessment. Again, we're leveraging kind of 40 years of research here to understand this. So we play a little game with 5 to 12 years old. From 12 years old and above, there's a quiz that we do. And what we're trying to do there is understand, are they creative? Are they leaders? Are they more realistic and conservative, so they like technology? So we try and get this understanding of them right from the beginning. And then we use a data system that we created ourselves called CBAS to validate and track that. So at the end of every class, our teachers are entering 8 data points on how the child responded to the subject and also how they responded to the activities. Now, in one class, that data doesn't give us very much feedback, but after 10, 20, 30 classes, it gives us this amazing insight into areas of interest that this child has related to their learning. And if you look at, the traditional schooling system, in most countries in a public school, there's somewhere between 30 and 80 kids in the class. It's impossible for a teacher to really understand what that child needs in terms of their learning, in terms of the learning styles, what their aptitude or interest is. But at Curio, we only have 8 students in a class. So it gives our teachers the opportunity to spend more time to understand the child, and then by observing the child and entering feedback into our data system, we're able to really understand the learning needs of that child and areas of interest which we can then share with the parent who understands more about their child and can encourage and nurture and to support their child. So there's a fairly dense data system behind this that our teachers are using and that we share with our parents, and I'll take us through a little bit of feedback of what that looks like. So from the starting point, so if you look at it from a student journey perspective, the first step is to understand who they are, what they're potentially interested in. Then we look to try and nurture and develop those skills at Curio, and then we're constantly looking at ways that we can track their progress through our data system. You know, obviously for parents, it's easy for them to understand how their child is progressing in math, or how they're progressing in science, or how they're progressing in English. There's global standards for that. But when you're talking about, you know, design and technology and entrepreneurship, there's no global standards yet. You know, we spoke yesterday about entrepreneurship education, and the challenge of entrepreneurship education is that there is no K-12 curriculum in the world. We are the first people to build one. So obviously we need to try and make sure that we're giving parents feedback all the time on how their child is progressing. It gives the parents confidence that their child is learning and that their child is improving the skills and behaviors that we're teaching them. Okay, let's take a kind of a more of a macro view. You know, why are we able to grow so quickly in a very short period of time? That's because there's a significant market need for what we're doing. Now, obviously, Curio Edu, Mansoor and the team have got incredibly dense and detailed market research on each of the markets that we're looking to develop through the Middle East and North Africa. But this is kind of very high level. So the market is there. Affordability in some markets can be challenging, but in each market we adjust our pricing according to the market dynamics. So there's no fixed pricing. The pricing can be adjusted. But our focus at Curio is really on two key markets. It's Greater Asia, the Middle East and North Africa. We see that from a business perspective, we can have the most impact on young learners in those markets, but we also see that there's this aspiration from parents to give their child an advantage and give their child a head start. So our focus from a business development perspective is really on these kind of markets through here, and less so on kind of Europe, Latin America, or even the US. Then in terms of, why parents want something different. So we spoke about the paradigm shift of education, and this shift is not coming from the education system itself. It's being driven by the demand of parents, and in some countries, it's being driven by students themselves. So for example, in Thailand, where we have an extremely successful business, over the last couple of years, students have been demonstrating on the streets, complaining about the public education system, that it's not relevant for them. The skills that they're learning have no impact on their future. So the demand and this shift for change of education is actually coming from the customer. It's not coming from the supplier in terms of the public education system. So here we can see that, and we all know this, we spoke about it yesterday, the demands and the needs of knowledge, learning and skills is very different for this generation than for previous generations. And that's understandable as the technology around us continues to change. Also, parents' expectations in terms of the type of learning that they want. And this is, again, we have this in a folder that was in the brochure yesterday. But just kind of breaking this out, we can see that, there is a shift through the segments in terms of what parents want in terms of the focus and education of their child. So it shifts from elementary to middle school and to high school. And then the type of subjects that parents are expecting the education provider to deliver to them is also shifting. They want STEM, they want technology, they want bilingual education. They want their child to be able to speak in English and in their local language effectively. So you saw that our curve in terms of growth, it's being driven by the consumer. It's being driven by what parents want, the changes that they want. They don't want to go through the same education. They don't want their child to go through the same education system as what they went through. They're frustrated. And we see there's a global phenomenon taking place. If you give most parents a choice between sending their child to a local school or sending their child to a private school or an international school, and if money is not a consideration, 95% of parents will send their kid to a private school or to an international school. Why? Because of the perception of quality that their child will receive, whether it's classroom numbers, whether it's teaching quality, whether it's the infrastructure, the software, the technology. But we see this globally. There's a shift that's taking place from public education to private education. And again, some countries, this is happening at a faster rate than others. In some countries, it's not affordable to do that. But generally, in the markets that we're operating, that's what's happened. So for many, many consumers, Curio is seen as a relatively low-cost international school. They can send their child to the local public school, which is free or low cost, but then they get the benefits of sending them across the road or down the street to Curio, where the environment is high quality, with the materials, the technology, the computers, the software is the latest, and the teachers have been trained with global or international instructional methodologies to bring out the best in the child in a relatively small classroom environment. Okay, a little bit about myself. So I have been the CEO of some of the largest education companies globally, from publicly listed education companies running their Asia operation to English language training businesses. Most of our partners and co-founders have come from international school groups, including our curriculum developer, Katie Trethway, who's come from the IB curriculum, the British National Curriculum. So we have a team of people that have been involved and deeply passionate about education for a very long time. I started my career as a teacher and then progressed through the education system to be running large-scale education, multi-unit education businesses with offline and online operations. So we understand the business model, we understand the market relatively well. So we have an outstanding and very talented team. I'm going to try and connect now to Richard. So Richard Giddings is a co-founder. He's based out of Kuala Lumpur. I'll just see if we can get Richard. Thanks, Mansoor. So we're just going to dial Richard in, and wanted to show you a little bit about what a Curio Learning Studio looks like. So we have standards in terms of design. So it doesn't matter whether you go to a studio in Muscat in Oman, or whether you go to Tokyo in Japan, or whether you go to Shenzhen in Beijing or Jakarta in Indonesia. The look and the feel of the studios is the same. They have the same tonality. The facilities look the same when you enter, the reception. So we have very strong standards in terms of what we want our centres to look like, but also in how we train our staff. So centrally, from Curio perspective, we onboard and train most of the staff. On a monthly basis, our teachers and principals attend training, ongoing training, which is delivered by us, by Curio, and every 2 weeks, Our marketing teams join lead generation and marketing activities, making sure that we're consistent with how we deliver our brand messaging. You know, I've learned over many years of delivering education the importance of being very consistent and disciplined in terms of how we operate. So a student entering a studio in Cairo or entering a studio in Riyadh, they should have exactly the same quality of experience as a student that's entering one of our studios in Los Angeles or one of our studios that we're opening up in Sydney in Australia. It needs to be the same quality. And we can only do that obviously by making sure that we're recruiting the right people, but also that we're constantly training our people in terms of the standards that we want in delivery.
Paul, hi everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Hey Richard, we've got you.
Okay, good. I actually can't see the slides on the screen.
Yeah, we can't see you either.
Okay, it's probably good. Okay, there should be, sorry everyone for this technical hitch. Guys, I think I sent my slide through to you. If you can show the slides that I sent to the group, then I can walk you through it. But just to introduce myself as well while I'm here. So my name is Richard. I'm the co-founder of Curioo with Paul and Catherine, who's based in China in the US. My background is in education as well, working with Paul for the last 20 years in building up companies, scaling companies, and operating within the educational sector. Myself, I've got an extensive background in working for international schools and also for international bilingual kindergartens, mainly in Asia. I spent a lot of time working in Asia, 18 years in China, and I came to Malaysia to set up an education company, which I've run for the last 12 years. And then, as Paul said, 4 years ago, we launched Curioo. So part of my job, or part of the scope of my day-to-day job, is basically I help partners on board their business. So what I do is I work with the partners right at the beginning, from a concept and an idea through to the implementation of the studio, the operation of the studio, and then I stay with them and support them each week as their business grows. So my job is really going from the very minute details of designing a studio, and then I need to then I follow it right through to implementation, building up the studio, and then helping the partners scale their business. Guys, I'm still seeing the old slide. I sent my slides through, so you're going to have to disconnect Paul's slides and show my slide. Can you do that? Sorry. Paul, do you want to? If you got more to present, then maybe we can flick back to me, and we'll work on the technical side, and I'll come back to you.
Okay, great. Okay, just wanted to take us through a little bit more while we're waiting for Richard. Oh, okay. Actually, Richard, we have some of your slides, but it looks like the old ones. Richard, you there?
Yeah, that's right. So Paul, flick right away through to the studio, the Curioo studio.
This one?
I can't see the screen, but...
Okay, so it's opening a Curioo studio.
Okay, so let me just get the slides on my computer then. So open a Curio Studio. When we work with a partner, we focus on initially on a location strategy, and we generally use two directions that we can take. We can take, as Paul mentioned before, placing your school around a community of education, like primary or secondary schools, or a commercial area where there's lots of schools. Or we can take a mall-based approach where we choose a high-traffic mall, and then it gives you lots of advantages with traffic. So these different strategies that we can take. We generally prefer not to be in office or non-commercial areas, obviously because it's difficult to get young kids into those areas, especially with parents working. So in terms of efficiency, normally with a studio, we're looking at a minimum of 5 classrooms with a 1-to-8 student ratio, so 1 teacher to 8 students. Paul mentioned before that we kind of navigate between 175, 200 square meters, which gives us an ideal space. So when we recommend the size of a studio, we try and keep it quite concise. In terms of classrooms, we have our technology room, creative classrooms, multiple use classrooms, and auditorium as our main. When we're designing a studio, we always start planning out this in detail. Okay, the next slide.
Okay, we just have a detailed floor plan.
Okay, I've got it now. It's on, so I can see. Yeah. Okay, so basically, if you're looking from the left-hand side, you've got the entrance, and normally at the beginning of each studio, we put an auditorium. This auditorium is used as a space for children to present things, because we want them to really get used to presenting things, to showing their work, to be proud of their work. It increases their confidence, it increases their public speaking skills. So it's really useful to to have children do routine kind of presentations in the studio. And as we go through, we got our technical classrooms, which generally you can use. We call it tech classroom, but that's probably not the best description, because actually in our technology classrooms you can be doing creative design classes using multimedia. You can be using the classroom for entrepreneurship when you're learning how to do spreadsheets or working with a Microsoft Word. So anything to do with technical classes, then we would use the tech classroom. As you go down a little bit, you've got what's called a little half moon table. This is called an IAR room. So this is where students do their initial test. So every time a student comes in, they would do an initial test, which consists of a behavior test where we're trying to place, trying to look a little bit more into their personality. And then we also run an English test, which gives us a baseline of the English, which is really important for the placing of the students. Moving along the same side, you've got this kind of open classroom concept. So this open classroom concept is really important for us, because in a normal standard school, classrooms are enclosed with walls and the typical classroom that you're used to. But we want to promote students that have confidence speaking, being able to maintain their attention through audible noises or people walking past. So these open classrooms are really useful in reinforcing their focus their focus through a class. So obviously for 3 and 4 year olds, you won't put them in this classroom, but as they go a little bit older, then you're going to optimize this classroom. So this really is quite important to how we develop the skill sets of the children. Then we've got a number of classrooms called multiple use. So the multiple use classrooms are modular based classrooms. So these classrooms are usually classrooms where we can change the structure of the classroom itself into pair groups, group work, single work, and this helps. Again, it helps with our overall objectives of collaboration and teamwork and working together to solve problems. So these multiple classrooms are built with a modular mindset. And then lastly, you've got this creative classroom, which is the big classroom with a huge desk. which kids basically make a lovely mess each time they have activities. It's really nice to see, and there's lots of sharing, lots of fun in these classrooms. So again, this is just one example. This example is in Kuala Lumpur. It's about 1,600 square feet. So it's not a huge studio, but this is the model that we work with our partners to put into their countries. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so in designing a studio, let me get my slide. Sorry. In designing a studio, we have an in-house team. So obviously, when we work with partners, they can access graphic designers, they can access people. But what we find is that because we have an in-house team that has the knowledge and it can easily build a studio within the space within 1 or 2 weeks. It's really, for us, we try and make sure that partners actually take our option of designing the studio for them. Because obviously we built a lot of studios, we know what we need to fill in each of the areas, and we always optimize and improvise in each studio. So what we do is that we take a floor plan. Obviously, a little bit of work to do before we get the floor plan, and then we go from floor plan to 3D within 3 weeks. Now, obviously, we need a lot of inputs to get that there, but generally speaking, we can get a floor plan in 3 weeks. Construction period that we generally work with on partners is about 90-day post approvals. So sometimes there's a delay on approval. But as long as we're on track with our planning, then post-approval should take us 90 days to build a studio. And the average cost of a studio so far, based on the premises that we've mentioned earlier, is about $75,000 US. So if you look at the screen with these 4 slides, on the left-hand side is the reception area, and you can see that we're very consistent with our branding. We're very consistent in our DNA. We want all studios to follow our brand identity so that you can leverage from a global footprint and an international heritage company. On the right-hand side is that initial the IER space where we do the test of young kids. On the left-hand side is what is a technology room. On the right-hand side is the art and creative room. But what you notice is that on the pictures behind, so you look a little bit further and you look at the visuals that we have in the classrooms, they are also consistent. They also are part of our branding messaging. So in the IER room, we got the lights, which is kind of shining a light into the young students. In the technology room, we got the flying spaceman or the surfing spaceman, which represents that kind of leap into the future and the technology that people link together. And on the right hand side, you've got these pencils on the floor. So we're very when we design a studio, we're very insistent on the consistency of the brand itself. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so what I did is, obviously I don't want to spend too much time showing you endless videos, so I just chose 2 videos that maybe they show what a studio, what children are doing within the studio. And the one on the left-hand side is our new kindergarten in Malaysia. So I hope it plays. I hope there's sound. Can you try? Nope. Okay. Okay. Trust me, it's a nice video. And on the right-hand side, we have what Paul mentioned before. We have students from China who have just completed our Global Explorer Camp. So a group of students came from China, spent a week or so in our Japanese studios, where they would actually mix with the local Japanese students, and then they would go out on field trips together. So that kind of sums up really, the impact of Curioo on a global perspective. Like I said previously, we are an international company, and we want to improve our footprint. Okay, Paul, I don't want to keep you anymore. Back over to you.
Thanks, Richard.
You're welcome.
Try and get these videos going maybe in the break. I think it's important to see the context. If we could just go back to my presentation, please. Great. And then maybe we can remove Richard. It feels a bit strange having him behind me like that. Great, thank you.
Look in the back of your head.
Okay, I'm going to go through a bit of the tech stack behind it, because what we had to do at Curio was create our own technology platform, because a standard learner management system was not going to be able to track all the responses that we want from our students in the classroom. So we built our own, what we call a behavior and aptitude system, which our teachers are the super users of the platform, but also our parents get access to. So we provide real-time reporting to parents on how their child is progressing through the course. And obviously we're tracking the students' learning objectives, whether they've achieved the learning objectives, but also a number of behavioral responses: resilience, persistence, creativity, leadership, depending on the activities that we're doing. And we provide and we track this kind of longitudinal tracking of how the student is developing these skills, because it's, as I mentioned, it's easy to track math development, it's easy to track English development, but if you're talking about creativity or critical thinking, there's no software system in the world that will track that. So we had to design and create that with a team of psychologists and technologists, which has created our CBAS system. I'll take us through a little bit of what this looks like. So every parent has access to our mobile app. Again, it's really important that students understand what their child is learning, and they're able to understand if their child is progressing or not. So I'll quickly go through some of the key elements of our app. So you have a parent access, you have a teacher access, and obviously at the back end there's an admin access. So there's a whole series of functionalities that parents can access related to news, class feedback, their homework, because we expect our students to do 10 to 15 minutes of homework 3 to 4 times a week, just to reinforce that what they've learned at Curio. There's AI built into the system, and I'll take us through what the AI is doing, profile and kind of basic contract information. So a parent can go to the app, they can see the schedule, they can see the date and the time of when their child has their classes, pushing out for the length of their contract. They can see what the subject is, they can see who the teacher is in the class. That we can also go through, so we can also go through the feedback. So again, I can sit down and go through some more of the feedback, but the feedback is crucial for our students. So on the top left here, you can see how the student is responding to different subjects, but also you can see how they're responding to the learning objectives of the subjects. So we can track our students on an individual basis. We can compare them to a cohort of students in their country or globally in terms of their understanding of what has been taught and what is being learned. We provide parents with an overview of what their child has learnt that lesson. So it's a brief summary of the learning objectives. If it's English, it could be the target language, the vocabulary, the grammar points. If it's entrepreneurship, it could be related to brainstorming and the activities that they did to try and promote the skill of brainstorming. We also have feedback. So at the end of every class, the teacher will type 1 or 2 sentences about how that child responded to the lessons. So the teacher's giving numerical feedback related to learning objectives, being the effort in the class, but also typing in some written feedback. So the feedback is personalized for each student. There's also notifications. So every center Almost every weekend there's events, there's parties that take place, so we send push notifications to the parents. That can be done on a studio, on a country, on an international basis, where we're communicating certain events and activities. We have seminars for parents to educate them also on their child and child development. We have the homework function, so some homework, 50% of the homework is done through our student books, 50% is done online, where parents can actually see what their child has done, and we can use our systems to automate the marking and give immediate feedback. We can just track whether the students are completing the homework or not, and then all of this data gets rolled into our machine learning system. So we're capturing an incredible number of data points on each child. We know through the curriculum of what they've learned. We get feedback from the teacher, both in terms of scales of how much the student has understood, their well-being, their effort, the written feedback, and then their homework feedback. Now, one human cannot digest all this and give feedback to a parent or recommendations on what the child should be learning. But our AI system can do that. It collates the information from homework, from the learning progress of the student. It's able to then give recommendations on areas that the student should practice more, or areas, additional exercises in our program that the students can do. It's up to the parent and the student whether they want to do that or not. I would say that about 45% of parents are encouraging their child to do more. 55% think that they're doing enough. So we don't push this, we leave it up to the parent to decide, but we encourage it. Also, parents can ask questions through our AI chatbot about the curriculum, about the course, and about their contract as well. And obviously, if the system can't answer, then it will be routed to a person who can also answer the questions. So this is a really high level. Obviously there's teacher platform as well, where the teacher has their schedule, has the lessons that they're teaching. They do the attendance of each student. They also see the feedback by other teachers in previous classes about that student, so they can adjust the learning dynamics in the classroom. So if we see one of the students is lacking self-confidence, we continually see this feedback, then the teacher can adjust the classroom dynamics to encourage that student in the class to share his ideas with the other students in the class. Again, there's feedback that they've been given to the student. Also, there's the homework, so teachers can also, where the homework is marked by our AI assistant, the teacher can also provide additional feedback, written feedback on the homework with suggestions. And very importantly with the system as well, parents can give feedback. So if they have any concerns about their child's progress, about what they're learning, about maybe they feel that their child is not moving fast enough or progressing fast enough, of course, they can come into our learning centres and speak to us, but also in real time they can give us feedback through our app system. And then at the back end, we have a fairly significant administrative function as well, where the administrators, the general managers of the business can see kind of the progress of the students, they can collate data, they can see attendance, they can see student progress, so we can kind of standardize this from a back end perspective. Okay, let's kind of, again, shift gears. Let's look at the finances. We are a for-profit education business. When we build a studio, we expect to generate profit from that studio. Now, we do have, obviously, some outreach programs. We are happy to share our curriculum as part of, social responsibility, but the core of what we do is obviously to drive a profitable business and deliver high-quality learning to our students. So we have the multiple revenue opportunities. We have studios, the offline facilities, we have online opportunities, we have school licensing opportunities as well. So in a studio, that has maybe a radius of 1 kilometre, there's normally 1 or 2 schools, and we would proactively look to work with that school to license some of our content there. The school gets the benefit of a relatively significant discount in accessing our curriculum, but we also get access to those students who can come into our program on a more of a permanent basis. In terms of the model of a studio operations, obviously we need, there's certain functions that need to be done. Richard mentioned that it costs around $75,000, depending on the country, to build out a studio, but the profit margins of our business are relatively attractive. So we would target on average 30%. In some markets that's up to 45%. So it depends on the pricing, it depends on the labor, it depends on the leasing costs. But from a general basis, obviously we're trying to attract new students. So we have a lead generation or marketing function where centrally we provide some support, but ultimately it's up to our partners to drive customer acquisition. You know, we're trying to generate maybe 10 to 15 new students each month into our centers. Obviously we have the teachers themselves. Again, it differs by market in terms of the profile of a teacher. In most markets, we train a local teacher to deliver the product. We find that it's not difficult to hire teachers generally. Many of our teachers came from the public education system, but they want something more. They want to give more feedback, provide more support to students. In some countries, we'll use expatriate or foreign teachers for the English component. But it depends on the market. It depends on the access to talent as well. So for example, in China, they're all local teachers. In Japan, we have foreign teachers for English and local teachers for the Curioo subjects. In Indonesia, it's all local teachers. In where Richard is, in Kuala Lumpur, in Malaysia, it's all local teachers. So the delivery model is flexible depending on the needs of the market. In most markets we operate, we would recommend using local teachers primarily, who we would support in terms of training. So then you have other staff. Obviously we would need a consultant, a sales consultant, who would work with the parent and enroll the child. We have the leasing costs of the facility itself, and then we have other ongoing costs. It could be related to printing, electricity, utilities, etc. But you know, this is the model. Again, we would expect that 25% would be the minimum in terms of the profitability of the business, going up to about 45%. But again, it depends on the market and on the operation. So the financial returns are generally very attractive from an investor perspective. So most of our investors at Curioo, they invest in Curioo for 2 reasons. One, they want to give back to their society. Most of them are quite, most of our investors are either large education companies that want to attract an adjacent segment of the market. They can be individual investors who are generally high net worth individuals that have done well in their life and want to give back to their community or give back to their country. The other component is obviously the profit perspective. They want a profitable business. They want a return on their investment. So Curioo is seen as quite an attractive investment for both. You're impacting society, you're doing the right thing in terms of ensuring that you're preparing this generation, but because of the business model that we've developed, we can provide also attractive returns from an investor perspective. The payback on our studio, so Richard mentioned about $75,000 to build the studio. The payback on our studios are relatively quick. Normally we would start marketing or enrolling students before the opening of the studio. We would start marketing 6 weeks before. So by the time the studio opens, we would have somewhere between 125 students and 50 students. So already the business is cash flow positive from the first month. So we put a lot of effort into the marketing of the business, and making sure that obviously we're managing the cost base of the business. a longer period of time. Obviously, again, it can depend on it depends on the market, it depends on the pricing and the cost structures, but again, the return is relatively quick from an investor perspective, and the returns over a period of time are attractive. You know, most of our partners, they scale relatively quickly. They'll open one, but they'll open the second one within 3 to 6 months, and then they'll scale. So, you know, our partners in China and in Thailand are opening quickly. At the moment in Japan, we're opening a new studio almost every month with various partners because of the returns that we can get and this kind of fairly significant market demand. At the moment, in all the markets we operate in, we don't have competition from a subject perspective. Most of the competition that we have is mainly from English language training providers. In many cases, parents see the value proposition that we provide is much higher than what a traditional English language training provider. We have parents that are shifting their children from art or design or, you know, art schools. We have parents shifting their children from maybe coding or STEM schools because of this kind of broader value proposition that Curio provides. But it's a very strong cash flow business because most of the parents will pay up front for the learning. Again, for some, it depends on the country. There could be regulatory restrictions here, but most parents are paying a minimum of 3 months or 1 semester in advance, sometimes 6 months, in many cases 1 or 2 years ahead. In many cases, parents are reserving the placement of their child. Maybe the child is 2 years old. We do or don't have kindy in that location, and they're reserving the placement for 2 years into the future. So the new studio that we're building in Saudi, we have both facilities. We have kindy, so we're utilizing the facilities, we're really maximizing the facilities, the physical location, because we have kindy, which operates from about 8:30 in the morning to about 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Then we have our kids who come in after school from 4:30 to about 7:30. So we're really maximizing the utilization of the space, which obviously improves the return on investment. So again, these can provide very attractive returns. Okay, again, as I mentioned, I won't go into this in too much detail. We started as a standalone studio business, but again, we didn't anticipate the demand that we're getting from schools to augment their curriculum. So this is a significant growth area of our business and our operations that we're looking to accelerate. And then in terms of, from a platform perspective, so what do we kind of provide our partners is a very comprehensive platform. We provide the technology infrastructure to support student learning. We also provide some of the marketing and database systems, the customer relationship systems to manage the lead generation functions, the student delivery functions, the mobile app for parents who can access it at any time. We have the multiple delivery of our product, studios, offline, online, we have licensing and we have the camps. The content we're constantly upgrading. So we have a curriculum development team based out of London and Singapore and the Philippines who are constantly getting feedback from our teaching teams on what activities are working and what are not working. We recently put AI learning in, so teaching our students about generative AI and artificial intelligence, and they start from 7 years old learning about these systems. So as software changes, as system changes, we're able to move very quickly. So we're constantly upgrading or updating our curriculum on a rolling 90-day basis, depending on the feedback that we're getting from our teachers, depending on what's happening in our society related to software and systems. And then we provide this centralized support. It's really important that our partners feel confident in what they are delivering from an academic perspective, from a marketing, lead generation, and brand perspective. So we provide this very comprehensive support and structure to our partners globally. Again, We get inquiries to open Curio studios around the world, but we're focused. We're very focused on Greater Asia, the Middle East, and North Africa, where we see the biggest opportunity to actually impact society through those countries and through those territories. So we're constantly providing this support and encouragement to our partners. So when our partners go into this business opportunity, we want them to feel that we are together. The success, we work together. And ideas that work or don't work in some countries or territories, we make sure that they're shared so we're not repeating mistakes or challenges. Okay, I think that's it for me this morning. I wanted to again thank you for the opportunity to share what we're doing at Curio. We're super excited about the opportunity, and we hope that you will join us on this path in the near future. Thank you.